Narration: 400 miles off the Colombian coast. Pitch darkness. A lone surveillance aircraft circles above international waters, its crew scanning thermal sensors for something that shouldn't exist. And then, there it is. A shadow, barely visible against the Pacific swells, moving at 35 knots, carrying 8 tons of cocaine, worth $232 million. This is a narco submarine, a ghost ship built in the Colombian jungle, designed to evade every radar, every patrol boat, every eye in the sky. For years, they were rumored, legendary. The Coast Guard called them Bigfoot. But on June 18, 2019, in the dead of night, the legend became real. And the men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Munro had 60 seconds to catch it before it sank to the ocean floor. This is the story of that night. The Ghost Fleet. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand what a narco submarine actually is. These aren't military submarines. They're custom-built vessels, hand-welded in remote shipyards deep in the rainforests of Colombia and Ecuador, built under jungle canopy by cartels with billions at stake. Each one costs around $2 million to construct. Each one can carry up to 7 tons of cocaine. And they're almost invisible. Semi-submersible vessels ride just inches below the waterline. Only the cockpit and exhaust pipe break the surface. Their hulls are painted blue to blend with the ocean. They're made of fiberglass to minimize radar signature. They have no transponders, no lights, no flags. By design, they are engineered to disappear. The first confirmed narco submarine was captured in 2006 off the coast of Costa Rica. The Coast Guard had heard rumors for years, fishermen's tales of strange shapes moving through the water at night. They dubbed the phenomenon Bigfoot, something everyone talked about but no one had actually seen, until they did. Between 2006 and 2019, the number of these vessels exploded. Intelligence estimates suggest cartels launched 60 semi-submersibles per year by 2009. Each successful voyage delivered hundreds of millions of dollars in cocaine to U.S. shores. And here's the problem: only 10% were ever intercepted. That's not because the Coast Guard isn't trying. It's because the mission is nearly impossible. The patrol zone, the Eastern Pacific Transit Zone, covers an area roughly the size of the entire continental United States. And the Coast Guard patrols it with resources equivalent to 2 police cars. 2, for an area spanning millions of square miles. Detection relies on surveillance aircraft, satellite imagery, and tips from international partners. But even when a narco sub is spotted, boarding it is another challenge entirely, because these vessels are designed to self-destruct. The Hunt, June 18, 2019. Eastern Pacific Ocean, international waters. The Coast Guard Cutter Munro, a brand new Legend-class cutter, is on its first major counter-narcotics patrol since commissioning 2 years earlier. It's a state-of-the-art vessel, 418 feet long, equipped with advanced radar, helicopter launch capabilities, and tactical boarding teams. But even with all that technology, finding a narco sub in the vastness of the Pacific is like searching for a needle in 1,000 haystacks. That afternoon, a maritime patrol aircraft, likely a P-3 Orion, picks up an anomaly on thermal imaging. Something small, fast, and unidentifiable. Moving north. No transponder, no flag. Operating hundreds of miles from any legitimate shipping lane. The aircraft circles, confirms the sighting, relays coordinates to the Munro. This is it. This is the white whale. The Munro's commanding officer makes the call. Launch the boarding teams. 2 rigid-hull inflatable boats, RHIBS, are lowered into the water. Each carries a tactical crew, Coast Guard Law Enforcement Detachment personnel, armed, equipped with body cameras, trained for high-risk interdictions. A helicopter lifts off from the Munro's deck, providing air support and real-time surveillance. The chase is on. The chase. The RHIB's race across the Pacific swells at 40 knots, engines roaring, spray flying. The helicopter circles overhead, relaying the submarine's position. And then they see it. A blue shape cutting through the water, almost invisible. Just the cockpit hatch and a snorkel pipe visible above the surface. It's moving fast, 35 knots, diesel engines screaming. One of the boarding team members, wearing a helmet camera, begins shouting in Spanish, "Alto! Alto tu barco! Stop your boat!" But the submarine doesn't stop. It accelerates. This is the moment every Coast Guard boarding team trains for and dreads. The crews inside these narco subs know the stakes. If they're caught, they face 20 years in a U.S. federal prison. If they can sink the vessel, destroy the evidence, they walk free. Every narco sub is built with scuttling valves. Open the valve, flood the hull, send 8 tons of cocaine to the bottom of the ocean. The crew gets rescued. International maritime law requires it, and without evidence, there's no case. The boarding teams have a narrow window, 60 seconds, maybe 90. That's how long it takes for a flooded narco sub to sink. The RHIBs close the distance, 20 meters, 15, 10. One of the Coast Guardsmen, let's call him Petty Officer Martinez, leaps from the RHIB onto the moving submarine. His boots hit the slick fiberglass hull. He grabs a railing, steadies himself. The vessel is still moving, still trying to escape. Martinez pounds on the hatch with his fist. Once, twice. "Abre la puerta! Ahora! Open the hatch! Now!" No response. The boarding. This is the most dangerous part of the operation. The crews inside narco subs are often coerced into service by the cartels. Fishermen, mechanics, desperate men paid a few $1,000s to risk their lives. They're not soldiers, but they're scared. And scared people make unpredictable decisions. The boarding team doesn't know if the crew is armed. They don't know if the vessel is rigged with explosives. They don't know if the hatch is already flooded and sinking. Martinez signals to his team. 2 more Coast Guardsmen leap onto the submarine. They work together, prying at the hatch. It's sealed from the inside. And then, movement. The hatch cracks open. A face appears, eyes wide, terrified. The Coast Guard team moves fast. They secure the hatch, pull the crew out one by one. 5 men, all Colombian, all speaking rapid Spanish, hands up, no weapons. Below deck, the hold is packed wall to wall with bricks of cocaine, wrapped in plastic, stamped with cartel logos. 17,000 pounds, 7.5 metric tons. Street value, $232 million. The crew is detained. The submarine is secured. The Munro moves in to take the vessel under tow. But there's a problem. The narco sub is taking on water. The scuttling valve was opened before the boarding team reached them. The vessel is sinking. The team has minutes, maybe less, to offload as much cocaine as possible before the entire submarine slips beneath the waves. They work frantically, pulling bricks, passing them hand over hand to the RHIB. 1 ton, 2 tons, 5 tons. But it's not enough. The submarine lists hard to starboard. Water floods the cockpit. And then, with a groan of stressed fiberglass, the narco sub begins its final descent. The boarding team pulls back, watches as the vessel, this $2 million engineering marvel, this ghost ship built in a Colombian jungle, disappears into the dark Pacific. But they got the crew, they got the evidence, and they got the drugs. Mission accomplished. The aftermath of the operation. The 5 crew members are transferred to the Munro. They're given food, water, medical checks. Under U.S. law, they're now suspects in a federal narcotics trafficking case. They'll be transported to San Diego, handed over to the DEA. charged under the Drug Trafficking Vessel Interdiction Act of 2008, a law that makes operating an unregistered semi-submersible vessel a federal crime, carrying a sentence of up to 20 years. Even without recovering all the cocaine, the case is solid. Operating the vessel itself is illegal. The crew's mere presence on board is evidence enough. But this isn't just one bust. This is part of a larger operation. On July 11, 2019, 3 weeks after the Munro's interdiction, Vice President Mike Pence stands on the deck of Naval Air Station North Island in San Diego. Behind him, pallets stacked 10 feet high with cocaine. 39,000 pounds, 933 pounds of marijuana. Total street value, $569 million. This is the result of 14 separate Coast Guard interdictions over 3 months. 55 suspected smugglers arrested. Multiple narco submarines captured. Pence addresses the assembled Coast Guard crews. "Make no mistake about it, Coasties. Your courageous service is saving American lives." And he's right. But the fight is far from over. The war that never ends. The 2019 interdiction by the Coast Guard Cutter Munro made headlines around the world. The helmet cam footage, showing a Coast Guardsman literally leaping onto a moving submarine in the middle of the Pacific, went viral. But behind the dramatic images lies a starker reality. The Coast Guard intercepts roughly 10% of narco submarines. 10%. That means for every vessel like the one the Munro captured, 9 others make it through. 9 shipments, 9 deliveries, billions of dollars flowing into cartel coffers. And the cartels are adapting. Since 2019, narco submarine technology has continued to evolve. Newer vessels are fully submersible. True submarines capable of traveling completely underwater. Some are electric-powered, reducing heat signatures and making them even harder to detect. In 2023, Colombian authorities discovered a 72-foot submarine built from carbon fiber composite. It was named Poseidon. In 2019, Spanish authorities captured the first narco submarine to cross the Atlantic Ocean. A transatlantic voyage, 66 feet long, 3-man crew, 3 tons of cocaine. Destination: Europe. The implications are staggering. If cartels can build submarines capable of crossing the Atlantic, they can reach any coastline in the world. And it's not just cocaine anymore. Rear Admiral Mark Fedor, director of Joint Interagency Task Force South, has warned that narco submarines could be used to smuggle weapons of mass destruction, chemical agents, or radiological materials. The technology is dual use. The infrastructure exists. The expertise is there. This is no longer just a drug war. This is a maritime security crisis. The U.S. Coast Guard operates with a fleet that is, on average, 50 years old. 70% of their cutters are aging medium-endurance vessels that require constant maintenance. They're slow, they break down, and they're up against adversaries building cutting-edge submarines with billion-dollar budgets. In 2021, cocaine seizures jumped from 150 tons to 250 tons. Coca cultivation tripled between 2014 and 2021. Production doubled. The cartels aren't losing. They're innovating. And every successful interdiction, like the one on June 18, 2019, is both a victory and a reminder of how many slip through the net. The silent service. The men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard don't operate in the spotlight. They don't have the budget of the Navy. They don't have the headlines of the Marines. But every single day, they patrol an oceanic frontier larger than most countries. They intercept smugglers in international waters. They board hostile vessels in the middle of the night. They leap onto moving submarines while waves crash around them. And they do it knowing that the odds are stacked against them. Petty Officer Martinez, the Coast Guardsman who boarded the narco sub on June 18th, didn't do it for glory. He did it because it was his job. Because somewhere in America, the cocaine in that submarine's hold would have ended up on the streets, in schools, in communities already devastated by addiction. That's the human cost. Every interdiction saves lives. Every kilogram of cocaine seized is one less dose on the street, one less overdose, one less family destroyed. But the war on drugs isn't won by seizures alone. As long as demand exists, supply will follow. As long as poverty drives Colombian fishermen to risk their lives for a few $1,000s, the cartels will find recruits. As long as billions of dollars are at stake, the submarines will keep coming. The night the Coast Guard faced down a narco submarine wasn't just a tactical victory. It was a reminder of the courage required to stand between criminals and chaos, to leap into the unknown, to fight a war that by its nature can never truly be won, only endured. The Pacific is vast. The enemy is invisible. The odds are impossible. But the Coast Guard keeps searching, keeps chasing, keeps leaping, because someone has to. And on June 18, 2019, they proved that ghosts can be caught, even Bigfoot.